Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Big Home Ed Conversations. You are here, as always, with myself, Kelly Rigg. I'm a home ed mum of two and founder of Off-Roading Motherhood. So I'm a qualified mindset coach, and I work with home educating or transitioning to home educating families as they navigate the usually quite tricky moments of figuring out how it's going to work, how their careers are going to happen, all the things. And it can be really, really stressful. So I really love helping families to kind of embrace it and to make sure they're figuring all of the details out. But I am joined, as always, with my co-host, Ashley Vanerio. So she's a fellow home ed mum of three and an ex-primary teacher. And essentially, we are just good friends. We've known each other for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. And essentially, we would find ourselves sitting around having a lovely cup of tea, talking about the world and actually really backing each other up, supporting each other as we kind of overcame various different challenges and mindset stuff. And actually, that really kind of, it was just lovely, wasn't it? We really found ourselves supporting each other, and we were sat there one day being like, we should just turn this into a podcast. And one of the biggest compliments we ever get is that it feels a little bit like you've made a cup of coffee, you come and joined us at the table and you're joining in with the conversation. So fingers crossed that's how you'll feel after you've sat and listened to this episode. But if you haven't heard from us before, then welcome to the show. And if you're a regular, then thank you so much for listening. We appreciate every single one of you who tune in every week. It is literally growing like crazy right now. We're seeing roughly kind of 25%, 30% like increase of listeners month on month, which is just insane, which is really, really exciting. So thank you, those of you who are tuning in again. Very, very exciting times. So this week we are going to be talking about, well, I guess, how kind of experiential learning, travel. Both of us are in the throes of summer now. One of the perks of home ed is being able to travel term time. It's one of the things which I think most of us feel very grateful to be able to do. And Ashley at the moment is over in America visiting family and is obviously having a great time with her girls. And I've just gotten back from Center Parcs Longley actually with my two. We had a really brilliant week with some friends of ours. And essentially, we both were just sat reflecting on the fact that travel sometimes can be the absolute best teacher because it just puts you in a completely different environment and just gives such opportunity for inspiration. And I think we just kind of wanted to chat today about kind of whether you can travel big or whether you travel small, whether it's literally just going to a different park, like whatever it is that you can actually do. There's some amazing things out there that you might find will actually help you to tick off your school thoughts for the week without even really trying. It's always quite good fun to get into this. So we'll definitely crack into that in a moment. But yeah, for now, we need to do our gratitude, as always. I, for one, I want to get started by saying I'm actually grateful for the really cool video you sent of the osprey doing its hunting in the ocean. Me and my son were absolutely enthralled with that one. We watched it a couple of times, watching it diving down and grabbing its fish out and then flying off with it. That was so cool. Yeah. And yeah, just like we're living vicariously through you, I think. But it was really cool to see with massive bird of prey nuts. We did some falconry last week at Center Parcs, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but we just absolutely love birds of prey, so it's really, really cool to get to see that. So thank you more than anything. Thank you. That's great.
I'm happy to serve. It's people forget that Florida is like a jungle because you go to places like Orlando and very built up areas where that part has been removed, but if you're in like other areas, I mean, it's quite tropical. We're a little north for that, but because we're in the northern part of the state, which still does get seasons, I would say. But there's a lot of wildlife here, and it is nonstop entertainment. So yeah, I actually have a video from this morning. We were driving out, and there was a turtle crossing the street, which I've never seen before. And these things are pretty massive, and it's hot. Like the pavement is hot. So I said to my husband, "Go get the turtle and move it like off the road." And he's like, "Ashley, that is a snapping turtle. It will not like that."
So it's like, do it anyway. Like, I dare you.
You could maneuver from the back and stay out of its reach. So we just watched it cross. But I did take a video, which I will send you after this.
Definitely do.
Pretty massive turtle. I've never seen them away from the water like that. So I guess he was trying to find a new pond to swim in. But yeah, I'm definitely just grateful for the ability to travel. I think that we're obviously fortunate to have the means to do that, to be able to come and fly a family of 5 back to Florida once a year. And so that just the expense to get here is significant. And so I think that definitely is something we will complain about to ourselves as we're booking the tickets. But then when we get here, we're like, oh yeah, definitely great that we did that. So yeah, just really enjoying the time and, just thankful for my husband's job that allows us to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was going to say, I think it's also nice. At least we kind of have family in different parts of the world. It really helps. Obviously, it cuts down such a lot of cost, doesn't it? Being able to go and stay with people
Yes.
that are living there. I mean, I've got some family kind of dotted around the world. I've got some in Australia and some in America, etc. I've got people around, but yeah, just getting there can be really tricky, can't it? And I think even just for a lot of people, just it would be quite overwhelming to try and travel like that as well. I know that I don't think I could ever. Well, I say I don't think I'd ever do it, but I don't think I'd want to do it. I would get through it, but trying to travel myself with the kids flying at the stage we are at, I'm not sure I could hack it. I think I might find that quite hard. Probably on my own anyway. I think I'd be fine if I was with my husband doing it together, but yeah, not on my own. So hats off to you as well for getting yourselves there. It's hard work traveling with kids, and I know that you had a bit of a disaster, didn't you? Bless you, sort of travel sickness and stuff going on as well. So it wasn't an easy journey.
I personally had the challenge, which is always better than the kids. I think they all luckily were fine. I have motion sickness that comes and goes. So sometimes the car ride will really bother me and other times it won't. And the same with airfare. And I was joking, I made it all the way, halfway around the world in January when we went to Bora Bora without any issues. And then just this flight to my mom's, it's like a disaster. The man behind me was so nice though. He was like, can I help you? And I know there's nothing to do to help, but like just the fact that he's like, I can see you're having a really hard time.
No.
I was like, yes, I'm probably bothering you as well. I'm very sorry.
Bless you.
And I have a very chatty 5-year-old. And at one point I was like, just watch your iPad, sweetie.
Please,
no more talking.
Just let me just go inwards and deal with this nausea, please. Oh,
yeah.
don't. I think
she's like,
my youngest as well doesn't always seem to grasp, but I really just can't right now. Like, please stop. I love you so much, but please find something else to do.
Yeah.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're there and that the travel sickness came to an end and you've managed to get through some time without it.
Yes, I'm hoping the return will be just fine, but
stock up on your ginger tablets or something.
It did. I was wildly unprepared for the extreme, but 5 minutes off the plane, I'm fine. So, there was that. It's good.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't
gotta
it?
land, get off the plane. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. So we wanted to talk about travel because obviously it's topical. We try and stick with things which are on our minds. And we were sat here going through the topics that we had thought about doing for the rest of the season. And we're just like, we want to do something light today. Let's talk about something that's actually quite joyful. And so I'd found myself reflecting, having taken the kids to Centre Parks last week. Had a lovely midweek deal, went with some friends. And essentially we tend to just say, because I've got what I refer to as my good enough home ed method. It's literally just a list on my fridge, which I've mentioned before. We've talked about it before, so I won't go into detail. But it's like maths, English, science, all the different subjects and types of things that we could possibly do. And I kind of aim for a minimum of 15 minutes, sometimes twice on each thing, to try and ensure that we have touched on it, even if we don't do it for very long. Just so that we've kind of had a bit of a conversation of something that is related to that. And it usually then means we've actually done a lot more than that, but it just gives us a little touch point. So then at the end of the week, I can just reflect and go, oh God, we've done loads. That's great. Actually, I can feel really good about this week. We've touched on loads of different things with them. And some weeks are better than others. And typically when we go on holiday, I just don't bother filling it out. I just leave it and accept that we've stepped away from normality. We're just here to have fun and do whatever we want to do. I'm not going to think about it or stress about it at all, because what we tend to try and follow in our household is kind of school is a year-round thing, and we don't tend to take half terms and holidays and things like that, partly because I want to be able to keep most days fairly minimal in terms of any kind of intentional schoolwork. And I find it's much easier to just do a little tiny bit most days, and then actually it then evens out over the year, instead of having these really intensive, must do Monday to Friday every single week. Otherwise we're going to be behind. I don't like that kind of energy in my life. So I much prefer to keep things nice and even. So taking a week to go do something else is totally fine. And we absolutely do it from time to time. But ultimately, normally I don't bother reflecting. I don't bother sitting there and actually filling it out. But this time I just did, because actually I noticed so much during the week that I just wanted to kind of remember how much they actually had done. And it was little tiny things like going down these different water slides, and they were talking about the speed that they were going down different ones, which ones felt fastest. And between them were talking about how kind of steep some of them were, or how one of them was bumpy, or how one of them was kind of more windy, and that meant that it went a bit slower, or why, even though it was quite steep, it wasn't very fast, maybe because the water flow wasn't strong enough, or whatever, right? And I really found it fascinating hearing them puzzling stuff out. And they definitely were not at all thinking that what they were talking about was science and physics.
Yeah.
They had absolutely no awareness that that's what they were discussing, essentially, but they were curious about it and showing their own interest in it, which is obviously 100% what you want anyway. Yes, okay, it's not documented. No, I didn't actually join in and give them any more scientific understanding in those moments. I didn't bother. I left them to it. I let them enjoy that conversation because actually they were grasping the concept perfectly well on their own. And what I know that will do is down the line when maybe we start talking about angles, or we start talking about water pressure, or anything really that might come up in conversations later, it will help them to grasp that concept that much easier because they will have a reference that in their minds just made complete sense. And actually, when I sat and reflected on the week, we had not only ticked off everything that we would normally cover, and I mean history, geography, like topography, we're looking at the types of forest, and it had all these lovely hills and lakes, and we're talking about like, oh, you've got this waterfall and the lakes down the bottom of the valley, and like, that's topography, that's geography. Like, we've done science, we've done maths, we've done reading. They were helping to figure out where our lodge was. They actually found it. I let them guide me. I told them the number and they followed the signs and they figured out where our lodge was. Like, so they were looking at the sequencing of numbers. Like, there's loads of stuff they did. And it was just really fascinating for me to actually take the time to reflect on a week that was 100% fun. Every single second was brilliant. We had a great week. We had a really lovely time. And nothing was intentional. Everything was just, they did random bits of stuff on their own. And they actually ticked everything off and more. And it was really lovely to kind of take a moment to really acknowledge that, because I think so often we think, and schools as well, like parents get punished for taking their kids out of schools during term time to take them abroad or to go and do something that is all about fun. But I think that really helped me to really remember that actually such a backwards way of looking at it, that there is so much learning to be had when our children are in a different environment. They've got so many new things to inspire them. And yeah, I just found myself really smiling, thinking this is actually really great, and has made me feel much more relaxed about my sort of several little trips we've got planned, and how they're not necessarily going to be giving us the time to be doing our school at home like we normally would. And I'm feeling really excited for our summer now, like really excited for it, because I'm just excited to see what kinds of random inspiration come their way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I always tell this story, and I'm sure I've done it on here before. But I think that those kind of taking school off the page, which homeschoolers tend to do anyway, but the more we can, the more it cements itself in their minds, the more it makes it real. Because when I first started homeschooling for first grade in the States and Italy, which here is in England is year 2, I just grabbed a curriculum that I thought looked good, and we started doing it, and it incorporated like the English language arts component, as well as some art history randomly, just like to kind of beef it up, make it more interesting. So sometimes we'd be, talking about, adjectives by describing a classic picture that's like famous from an art history perspective. And so we were doing this, and it mentioned like, oh, this house, and this is an American curriculum, but we were living in Italy, and it said this picture is housed in a church in Italy. And I was like, I wonder how far away that is from us. And it was not far. So we could go to, we like went and saw the picture from the book that we were doing related to, English. And it was just so exciting to be able to be like, oh, I just read about that. And now I'm seeing it. And oh, I am seeing that color. And I am noticing the brush strokes. And like, it was just very lovely. And so I think that the more you have an opportunity to do that, it just allows it to stay interesting, to stay relevant, because I think that's a lot of the challenge with education that is done in a classroom, whether that's at home or in a traditional school setting, is that it's just largely conceptual. And if we can give them those touch points to really interact with it, it makes such a big difference. And I definitely have always been a huge proponent of travel because I think it just exposes you to some of the very important things of life that you miss in a classroom setting. So, like interacting with another culture or language, seeing how other people go through like an average day, and seeing that different from a city if you don't live in one versus if you do live in a city, going to some more of like a rural area and experiencing it that way. So I just think that those things are always awesome. Museums, all of that, of course. But yeah, even just like you were saying, like a little trip to a different park and there's different wildlife there, or, just kind of getting, all these different inputs. I do think it's really important. My kids definitely point out those things when we're traveling. Oh, being here, obviously, we're in a different household than our own. So there's just this subtle difference. I was telling you earlier before we started recording that my parents always have on like the stock market channel. And so there's like a little TV in the kitchen and it's just kind of on and you can like turn the volume up or down, however. But my girl's like, what does it mean when the numbers on the bottom are red or blue or green? Like, what is the difference? And so, we that's something they hadn't seen before. And so now that's leading to a whole different conversation about investing and how, corporations kind of have money. And it's just very interesting, right? So we're, I think, going to kind of maybe dive into that a little bit, at least at a high level, because they're interested in it. So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every time they get a random bit of information like that, I was always kind of, one of the things that I say to people when they sort of ask me about how we do things is I say, sometimes I kind of just see it as everyone is a jar and it starts out reasonably empty. Like we have obviously our instincts and other bits of information and stuff that's already in there. But everything you do is either like a grain of sand or a pebble or like a really big rock. Some things become like significant core information. It's stuff which they go massively deep into, something that's really, really interesting, and that makes the big rock. Some things are tiny, tiny little grains of sand. But essentially all these different things interconnect. They all come into the jar together. They slowly but surely fill the jar up with loads of random bits of useful information from so many different experiences that help to build context and depth of understanding and allow them to draw upon different experiences that allow them to then, when they're then presented with a concept later in life that's a bit more complex or requires them to have some critical thought or they want to learn more about it, they will already have these little random little bits and pieces that they've learned from before that help them to make better sense of it and might already give them some groundwork in understanding it. But essentially, like everything they do adds to that amazing web of thoughts and ideas that they can possibly pull from. And at the end of the day, our brains will only keep what is useful and relevant, that we forget so much. Like if you sort of say to people like, well, do you remember much from school? They're like, no, God, hardly anything. Like most of it's gone now.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we remember what's really important to us. We remember the memories. Like if you reflect on your life and you look for the memories in your head, you'll only be able to really pull out the stuff that was really pivotal, really important, stuff that really made you happy or really made you sad, or bits of information that were really fascinating to you, stuff that you really, really liked. And this relevance is super important when it comes to thinking about how home ed is supposed to work, like how education is supposed to work, that our children will only remember what is relevant to them. You can lead a horse to water, you cannot force it to drink. Our brains will not remember everything they are given. And ultimately, if we can show our children how relevant it is in their community, in their life, that will allow them to do the things that they maybe want to do one day or whatever it might be, then actually that relevance really, really helps to build like this just general enjoyment of education, because it means that they're seeing it, they're feeling it, they're touching it, it's in their world. There's a reason to know it. And I think that just the act of travel, or whether it's not necessarily travel, but just like going to a museum or going out for the day and doing something as much as you can, even just like doing hands-on experiments or doing something which is a bit more creative than just doing a worksheet or, for example, whatever, but like finding another way of doing it, getting out in the garden and just poking around in the dirt, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Any experience that allows them to build some more texture and relevance to the information will help them to actually keep it, because it'll just actually form a memory or form an actual thing that they've experienced and done. And I think that's something which for me, my travels, the things that I've done in my life and had the really like amazing opportunity to do, have been a huge part of what I remember when I reflect back on like my childhood and the places that I got to go. Sometimes at school trips and stuff, we went abroad. I was really lucky to get to go on a couple, and actually those are really like massive memories that I've got of
Yeah.
school.
So I think that because we are an international family, a multinational family, we do travel a lot just to go see relatives, but it allows us to really be in different cultures and really experience life. And obviously it's important for me to have the kids back in the States because that's what I grew up at. And obviously I identify as being American and having some of those core experiences, 4th of July, summer barbecues, being at the beach, like that is very important to me and something I want them to experience. And I know my husband has the same with being Italian and the things that we do. For example, I love going and having the roasted chestnuts in the fall. Like I think it's a fun experience and he grew up doing it and I want our kids to do that. So we do try to do that as much as we can. And I think that what I've noticed more recently as we're sort of looking at summer plans, because I do want to keep it relevant to homeschool. I do want us to follow up on some of these if we can, these ideas that kind of come up. So I have started keeping a list on my phone of just random things and like snapping turtles. So I'll show them the picture and then I'll see if the library has a book on them, or I'll see if there's another opportunity for us to go and see them. And actually, funny enough, right near our library is a big turtle preserve. Wait till I send you a video of these. They're amazing. So I'll even post it to Instagram for everyone to see because they are really cool. And when you come up to them, like when you walk out on the pier of this little like preserve area, they all come over. So obviously someone's feeding them. That's how they're fed, but they ask you not to. So we've never fed them. But they do all come over and it is amazing. So I'm going to keep trying to like kind of build on this. And then even if it's like a quick search on whether it's Twinkle or even Pinterest has a ton of links to great resources that are free.
Mm.
A video maybe on YouTube. So I am going to try to be really conscious of making notes of just a topic, stock market, birds of prey, that kind of thing, so that I can go back when we leave here and just make sure I'm weaving that into what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So that they do have, like you were saying, they have these little like ear markers like that they can like, I do remember that. And this is interesting because I have seen it. So I think it just will help us to have a more engaging and enriching experience as we think about areas to look at for whether it's science or history or whatever that is. So it's super informal, but I found that if I try to write it down, I then have like 5 different lists going in different areas. So I've just settled on the notes app on my phone. And the girls will even be like, write this down. Like, this is a question I have, write it down, because it's usually bedtime when they have them and I don't want to answer it in that moment. Delay tactic.
Yeah.
I'm not falling for
delay tactics. Oh my goodness. My youngest is great for a delay tactic. My goodness. Too many. Yeah. No, I think it's also, building that relevance in what they're interested in and them getting to kind of reflect back on it, circle back around to it, do a bit more on it is so great. And I think like we've got some plans. We're going to Cornwall in a couple of weeks, and I have like we're doing the ocean as our topic this term anyway. And it's actually World Ocean Day. I didn't realize that. So obviously it's a really great extra thing on the 8th of June, which is perfect, which is coming up. So that's going to be great. And I think I've got loads of fun ideas of simple things that can build upon just going to the beach. Like we're going to try and like pick a sort of square meter and then count how many of each type of shell we find in that square meter. Then we can do a little tally chart later. Like I can just make a note on my phone and then later I can say, right, those shells we counted, let's actually mark it up on a graph and I'll show you how to do the graph. Or we're going to take a little jar of seawater home with us and then evaporate it. We're just going to leave it on like an open plate and let it evaporate and see the minerals that are left behind. Like all kinds of little random things that we can just kind of further investigations, put a little bit of sand under the microscope, that kind of stuff, and just really notice all the really cool stuff that is actually about the beach whilst we're there. That just loads of observations, talking about the vocabulary, just looking at the things and talking to them and playing with them and building a sandcastle and like all the different stuff that you can do. There's so many things that you can do. Like, as I say, even just building a sandcastle, just the physics involved in that, like how damp the sand needs to be, the methods of how you get it out of the bucket, if you make the bucket really wet, why the sandcastles are really hard to make after that. Like all the different things that are super important for just like concepts, as again later on more complex adult concepts that you might then go on to be an architect or an engineer or like whatever it is that they might go on to be. These things actually really make a difference. I mean, I was making a sandcastle with my youngest on the beach at Centre Parks, and she wanted to dig a moat. And obviously this is a lake, so it's not a beach. It doesn't have a tide. There's no water coming in to fill up said moat later on. And so she wanted to fill up the moat. And I was like, well, okay, we can try, but it's, and I was like, look, oh, don't tell her, just like let her experiment, she'll see. And obviously like bucket after bucket after bucket, and it's just sinking straight through the sand and disappearing. She's like, Mummy, why won't it stay in my moat? And I'm just like, well, why don't you think it'll stay in the moat? And I ended obviously talking about the fact that it's draining away. And I said, however, keep doing it, eventually it'll become saturated, and then hopefully it should start to stay. It'll still drain away eventually, but it will start to stay for longer. And it did. And she was really chuffed that it finally kind of reached a point where we had a full moat. And also you had like the gradient as well. We hadn't dug the moat deep enough on one side, and it meant that all the water kept pouring around and trying to pour out one side of it. And so she's like, why is that happening? And she started experimenting to try and make it so it'd fill up all the way around, and just so many different things in that. And I think we just have to almost take a step back sometimes. Like any educator, I'm sure, is doing this, whether they're in school, home educators, alternative provisions, all these different places, they will be observing the children, they'll be seeing them doing these amazing things and recognizing different concepts in whatever kind of play they're doing. But I do feel like home education is uniquely given an opportunity for children to have so much more time to explore concepts on their own wherever they are. And I think that it's really fun watching them come to conclusions, to ask questions, to be openly curious, and to be so focused for as long as their interest sustains on it too. Because I think that's the other really great thing about living a slower pace, is just giving them those opportunities to take their time and to let something fully play out. So I think like the idea of the snapping turtles is such a great one, because that initial fun of just watching it crossing the road and you guys laughing about not going and helping it because otherwise you're going to get a finger bitten off, and then looking at something later, and then going to the reserve, and then, you know what I mean? Like it builds on this concept and allows them to ask more questions and get more curious. And eventually that'll peter out completely naturally, all on its own. They'll be interested in something else and they'll want to move on. And when that happens, then it's fine and it just goes off on another different tangent. But I think it just allows them these opportunities to really build on and to satisfy that kind of urge to fill up that little space in their brain that's clearly like looking for something interesting to know right now. And that love, that I think that kind of concept of having almost, if you visualize like it was a little empty pocket in your head of like, at the moment I'm interested in filling up that pocket with some really interesting information, and the act of having that sensation to want to know something interesting and to just learn about it because it's interesting, and then keep that information to do something else with it later, or forget it if they don't care about it anymore, and that's completely fine too. That ability to just enjoy the process of learning means that they'll go off into the world and be presented with all of these opportunities and ideas and doors opening and people and places and things and jobs and career ideas, etc. And they will actually have these little pockets of curiosity will just open, and they will naturally want to go and fill them, because to them the act of learning something new will just be interesting and fun. It hasn't got an exam coming. It hasn't got like, you're not going to test them on it in 3 months' time to see if they can remember anything about snapping turtles. We've just enjoyed learning about them. Keep it or don't. But it's fun. Like, it was just fun to learn about for a minute. And it's such a lovely thing to see children learning for the sake of learning and just enjoying it because it's fun. And it's really taught me to do the same. I've loved as an adult just enjoying the process of learning a random new topic with them. And we do forget it. And it's fine that it goes out of my head again. It's not necessarily relevant to my day-to-day. Of course, I'm not going to keep all of it. But I enjoyed learning about it all the same. And it's just nice, isn't it? It's just fun. Like, if you can actually see it that way, it's just fun to learn new things.
Yeah, and I think you hit on the part of time and allowing children to have the time to actually really get into something. I was reading something, I don't remember the exact quote or where I even read it, but it was saying about how children can take up to like 2 hours to get into like a creative flow if they're creating their own game and like building a world, right? Like, okay, you're the shopkeeper and I'm going to come in and these are the food. And well, now we got to collect the food and it's pine cones or whatever, right? And like kind of like building this all up that it can take a really long time for them to actually get in the groove. And that's why a lot of the times when we're at a park or something, and obviously as parents, we've been there 45 minutes, right? We got to get going. When the kids are really frustrated, right? Like, no, we just started this game. And it's like, no, you've been playing for 45 minutes. But in their mind, a lot of that was just, building up, getting comfortable with the kids around them, figuring out how to, get 5 kids to play one game and who's happy with what. And all of that just takes time, especially for children. So the more time that you can allow them to be in that space, the more that they're learning patience and they're learning compromise and they're building up their own tolerance for even boredom, right? I mean, if we're constantly pulling these kids out of things and asking them to now move on to the next thing because we need to do that, and sometimes you do. I mean, we got to make dinner at a certain time and all that stuff happens. There's only so many hours in a day. But the more that we can allow them to really be in that space, the better. And that's why it's so lovely to have that flexibility at home, because if we're learning about Egypt and the girls are really interested, I don't have to stop that because it's math. Like, yeah, normally we'd start math at this time, but if we're really loving it, let's read another chapter. Let's keep going. Let's do more, because you really just want to take advantage of that. And I think that can be hard. It's certainly hard in a school setting because you've got to keep things moving along. There's just too many kids and only a certain number of hours in that day. But don't be afraid to flex your schedule to allow for that kind of absorption into a topic to really take place, because you can always spend less time on it the next day, more time on the other things you might have missed. But it's something really nice to see when you're really in that and everyone's interested. And like you were saying, that's when they're going to make those memories and hopefully learn something.
I think it's also like a really key thing to like, don't be afraid to take the tangent too, because I think sometimes you can start on a topic and it leads to something else and you're like, no, come on guys, we're supposed to be talking about this. But actually any kind of learning leads to somewhere interesting. And I think having that attitude that whatever it is that it ends up doing, it could end up being really, really valuable. And if they're curious about it, then it is valuable. Simple, really. I think that's actually the truth of it. If they are curious about it, then it is of importance to them, especially right this minute, as much as possible needs it. But like we had the opportunity to go to Norway last year, and it turned into like a 3-month-long pre-holiday topic. The kids were so excited about it because they'd never been abroad. So my son had been abroad, but when he was like 2, so they were both like consciously aware of getting to go, and so they were really excited to do it. And we set about the task of learning about Norway and the cruise ship and the route we were going to take and the places we were going to go. And that was kind of the early start of the topic. And it very quickly detoured off down Viking route. And then I was like, no, come on, right, we're supposed to be learning about Norway. Let's try and bring this back to Norway. Started looking at the wildlife, which then obviously veered on to going off and looking at the Arctic. And I was like, okay, all right. So we've done some about the Arctic now. Let's come back to Norway. And it just like, I don't know, all sorts of stuff, like how glaciers are formed, why cruise ships don't sink, or at least like how we try and prevent it, and all of the different things like safety things that are on board, lifeboats, boats that have sunk, like all the conversations that we had, like the amazing science experiment we did about water lines, like how boats can take so much weight, but once they go over that certain weight that they will actually sink.
Right.
It's quite scary, but it's really fascinating. And I think they asked some brilliant questions. I mean, went off on some really random tangents, and some of them were like, it's. I always say it's a bit like, I can't think what the name of the show is. It's like links, like random links in your head. It's like, it's a very ADHD thing to do, to be honest. But like when you're talking to someone and then you suddenly find yourself 20 minutes later, you're talking about something completely random and different. And like, what were we talking about? What was it that started this conversation?
How did we get here?
Yeah, I don't actually understand. And this is very much how our home ed tends to follow its weird tangent paths. And actually, I don't mind it. I actually think it works really well for all of our brains in our household anyway. We actually really enjoy it. We love the meandering and we love seeing where it goes. And then eventually it does reach a natural end. And at that natural end, we then say, right, okay, what were we trying to actually learn about? Let's go back to
where do we start?
The core of this subject, and then we can take it off down a different route. Actually, we've ended up doing some really amazing things because of it. And also, it fills me with a lot of gratitude for my kids, because I do think that as an adult, I went out into the world thinking the only thing that it was important for me to learn were things that would make me money. And anything else was considered a hobby. Everything else was considered a waste of my time currently, because the only thing I should be worrying about is trying to make a good income, and or like learning about mortgages, or learning about how to run a household, or learning how to do the washing, or like whatever important adulting job that I had to do, learning how to be a parent. Should have done more of that before I had kids. But there's lots of things that
Should.
definitely do not realize how much there is to it, do we?
Yeah.
But I think that since deciding to home educate and slowing my career down a little bit and being home a lot more, and yeah, all of the subjects that they have shown an interest in, I have ultimately ended up learning alongside them. And it really helped me to start to get interested in the world again, and to recognize how actually that kind of idea that as adults, we're supposed to just be focused on things that are going to make us money. And I think that's so true of so many adults, won't do almost anything except for, like, if they think to themselves, oh, I enjoy painting, maybe if I do a course, then I can learn how to paint this so that I can sell them, or whatever, right? Like we always seem to think that we've got to monetize or make it productive, or we can't go to that art class of an evening because actually I should be working and that's more important. And sometimes it is, of course, so we all need to make our ends meet. But ultimately, we tend to then stop ourselves from having any of these detours and side projects and interests that genuinely just make our brains happy. They just make us feel really satisfied. And I really love that. Yes, okay. I don't know whether or not this lovely tangenting brain nonsense is going to create really flighty kids that are going to hop from job to job to job. I don't know. Maybe that would make them very happy to do that. Who knows? But I don't know what that will mean for them when they grow up, and whether or not they will find a way of using that meandering learning ability to get really good at a job and to like really drive down into it. But ultimately, I want them to remain curious. I want them to remain open-minded and seeing opportunities to learn about new things, because we never know what new thing that might come across our path could turn into the most incredible career or opportunity. And I want them to be open to that. And I'm really grateful that they have reminded me to open my mind, to open my eyes, and to see and to learn more about what's around me and the people around me and the places and things, because opportunities have come for me in the past few years. This podcast is a great example. Like, I've started doing more things that I never would have done before because of this. And it's great to actually acknowledge that and recognize how relevant it is to us as adults to do this too. But yeah, so I guess this conversation itself has gone on a fun tangent, really. It's got detoured away from travel altogether.
Yeah.
But I think
but travel, it's important.
it's just all about the
Full
journey,
circle.
right? Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess this is it. I just think it's just really lovely. And I think we definitely need to be embracing a bit of meandering in our lives, a little bit of slowing down, a little bit of just trying to do something differently, experiencing stuff, feeling, touching, tasting, experiencing the world around us in whatever capacity you can do. And as I say, travel doesn't have to mean jetting off to another country. It can genuinely just mean going to a different person's house or going to a different playground or whatever. Like, find ways to kind of add a little bit of inspiration to your day, and just experience as much as you can, because there's so much out there to experience, isn't there, really?
Exactly. And I think, as we come into summer, it's obviously the natural time to start to think about traveling. People are going on a holiday and taking vacations, whether it's to visit family or just to get away as your own little nuclear family. And I think that sometimes homeschoolers can be worried, or maybe like I don't know, sometimes my relatives are worried, like, oh, but what are you going to do for school then? And I'm like, well, they're on break just like the kids are on break. Like, it's the same. We might do it at a different time, but it's the same. They still deserve a vacation too. But so yeah, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to spend some time just pulling away. Like you were saying, you weren't even going to track what they were doing that week because they were on vacation. That's okay if you do that.
Yeah.
So really just try to enjoy it and do what I do, make some notes and then circle back later.
Yeah. I was going to say, and I think equally, like, just actually just enjoy it. As you say, they'll be picking up so much that you'll see it. You will see it. If you're getting good at observing and noticing what they're doing in their play anyway, you will really see how much they pick up just by exploring and experiencing the world around them. It is just incredible to watch.
Yeah.
So I guess the last thing we should say is I wish all of you a wonderful holiday if you're going off on one soon.
Yes.
I hope you have a lovely time. We would love for you to inundate us, if you want, with the places you're going and maybe moments when you've experienced this with your kids and it's really made you stop and think how amazing it is that they get the opportunity to do these things. I know I've got one in particular where my kids got to like feed an archerfish at a museum, an aquarium.
Lovely.
That was just amazing. As a massive school group came through, and obviously there's far too many for them all to get to have a go. But as soon as the school group moved off, my two got to actually have a go at feeding them, which was really awesome.
Yeah.
Just like amazing little experiences that will always stick with me. I mean, I don't know if it stuck with them, I should ask them, but it was really cool. It was a fun thing to get to do. So yeah, I hope you all have a lovely time if you're off anywhere exciting soon, and do come and tell us what you get up to. But yeah, so obviously we will be back again next week. Apologies for the slight delay of an episode. We're doing great this season so far, aren't we? I think we've done this twice now. But we both had a bit of a week of it, trying to wrangle time differences, and I wasn't feeling very well, and too many different things were going on, and we're just like, we've missed the window. So never mind. We've done one for you this week, so enjoy this one, and the next one should hopefully be I'm recording with Wendy from Education Otherwise at the weekend to give you guys an update about what is happening with the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill. I've chosen to speak to Wendy again because they obviously are part of the legal fight against it. They've got the contacts in our lords who are actually fighting it and trying to back us up. So she should hopefully have some really good, interesting updates. And also, I think at this point, as it kind of progresses through the motions, I think more and more of us are starting to worry that this will actually come to pass, which is a bit of a shame. And hopefully, obviously, there's still some fighting time left. And even once it comes in, they'd still have to get things put into law, which still takes time, and hopefully will still be fought and stopped further down the line. But we are a little bit concerned right now that it's getting a little bit close, isn't it? It's getting a little bit hairy. So it'll be good to hear what Wendy thinks is going to happen next. And obviously, if it does come to pass, what that actually will mean for us as a home education community, which I think is important to think about. So hopefully that's what the episode will be about next week. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. If you are listening to this early on Sunday morning, you might catch me in time. I'm going to be recording at 11 with her, so drop me a DM if you've got a question for her. You might get there just in time to ask me a question. So if you're hot off the things, then good job to you. But thank you as always for listening. Drop us a rating if you've enjoyed this episode, pretty please. We're ranking really well these days, and it'd be lovely to reach out and to get more people to come and listen. And got some great episodes coming up, so speak to you all again soon.
Take care.